Quick question. If a prospect listened to your podcast for 6 months and then got on a sales call with you, would they still say, "So tell me a little bit about what you do"? Because if they would, congratulations, you've built a podcast that's excellent at passing time. Spotify is proud of you, but your sales team is not. Hold that thought.
Welcome to B2B Podcasting Insights with Neil Velio, founder of Podknows, a podcast agency helping you get better results from podcasting.
Most B2B podcasts aren't designed to influence anything. They publish episodes, they hit record, they have a conversation, they stay consistent with their scheduling. And all of that's a bit like owning a Peloton and only using it to hang your hoodies or your pantyhose. Technically, you're using it, but you're using it wrongly. And that's the vibe a lot of B2B podcasts tend to give off. That they're busy, that they're earnest, that they're harmless. If you want more insight on this, we discussed the idea of your podcast having a job in the previous episode of B2B Podcasting Insights. And you'll find that if you go to podknows.co.uk, that's podknows.co.uk, and then click B2B Podcasting Insights in the menu. Here's the truth that most podcast experts on LinkedIn won't go deep enough to be able to share with you because they don't understand it themselves. A B2B podcast should change how your ideal buyer thinks, not just what they know. Most podcasts focus on education because that feels safe. I get to share my expertise and sound knowledgeable. They're usually explainers anchored into frameworks, and they're having nice, orderly conversations, as if the buyer is sitting there listening, thinking to themselves, "Gosh, if only more people would define thought leadership one more time to me." They're just not. What they're actually thinking is, if I follow this advice and this goes wrong, I'm going to be the one explaining it in a room with no windows, not this podcaster. And that's a different problem that you're needing to help them solve. Remember my opening question. If someone can binge your show and yet they still need the basic information, that's not a lead quality issue. That's a design flaw. That's like having a fancy restaurant where people leave asking where the food was. Here's where it usually goes wrong for B2B podcasters. Most podcasts that are branded are built for strangers because that's exciting. That's the dopamine. So what you're aiming at is people who might discover the show one day, people who don't know you yet, don't have a relationship, people who, statistically, probably never will. So as a result, everything gets softened. Every opinion is balanced. Every statement has a safety net. Every episode sounds like it's been approved by someone who says, "Let's circle back to this, shall we?" Unironically. The result? A podcast that stands for nothing for no one. And it reassures absolutely nobody. So how do we go about this properly? Here are some things that no B2B buyer has ever said after listening to a podcast episode from you or anybody else that has a podcast. They've never said,
"Ooh, I loved how neutral they were. That really helped me to make a choice."
"Ooh, they did not challenge me once, and I felt safe. What a team."
They've explained things so slowly. I felt like a really highly valued village idiot.
No buyer has ever said,
"You know, I was not convinced, but episode 147 really cleared things up for me."
Decision-making doesn't work like that. The podcasts that actually influence deals, they're rarely the biggest. They're actually the ones where prospects say things like, "I felt like you were already in our internal meetings." And that's flattering. Mildly concerning, yes, but flattering and useful. And that doesn't happen because of branding. It happens because the podcast sounds like someone who's been burned before and remembers where and how. So how do you turn the ship around? Well, first of all, stop building content for the person who might listen today and start building content for the person who has to justify buying from you tomorrow. That person isn't looking for a definition of your industry. They're looking for the intellectual ammunition to stand up in their internal meetings and say, we have to choose them because they're the only people who understand X, Y, and Z about our own unique problems. Every episode you publish should contribute a small, undeniable addition to that justification. It's not about being nice or agreeable. It's about being undeniably right about their pain. This particular episode features a 12-page PDF document that will take you through the process of figuring out everything we're talking about in this episode. Go to podknows.co.uk/evaluate. That's podknows.co.uk/evaluate.
It's time for questions from listeners. Email with your question, neil@podknows.co.uk.
Each episode, I'm going to endeavour to answer some of the emails that I get from people in the wild. These are random people who have sent an email after listening to an episode, and they do that via neil@podknows.co.uk. That's neal@podknows.co.uk, or by clicking contact on the website at podknows.co.uk. No prizes for guessing which episode Clive has listened to recently based on his email. Seems Clive is responsible for marketing at a small business in Devon. And he says, "Hi Neil, our podcast gets great feedback internally, but prospects never mention it. Cheers, Clive." I'm obviously paraphrasing a much longer email, but for time, here's the uncomfortable truth, Clive. Internal praise is usually a bit of a red flag, actually. It means that your podcast is easy to agree with, and those with bias and responsibility as stakeholders feel safe with it. Your buyers don't need safe, they need decisive. If no one brings your podcast into the buying conversation, it's probably not helping them in any way during the sales process. It's just there. It's kind of like a plant that's in your office, withering in the corner, because no one ever bothers watering it.
And now, Founder FAQs.
Each episode, I'm going to share some of the frequently asked questions that my clients have for me when it comes to managing a successful B2B podcast. In this one, I wanted to share a question regarding guest interviews. Now, my own take on branded podcasts is that the best ones are usually a solo effort, since the listener is building a relationship with you. But that said, people still enjoy the idea of having a guest for different reasons, not least the sharing of some energy. And some people feel that they just bounce off others better. But how to manage that? And of course, having a guest each week is a lot of work. I spoke to Susan Walsh, founder of the Classification Guru and author of the book Between the Spreadsheets, and we might have come up with an idea for her to get the best of both worlds. But I also gave her a bit of a tip for ensuring that her guest experience is optimal.
So what I could do is start fortnightly, because what will probably happen is then people will start asking, can I come on your podcast?
Yep.
And then I could save the other weeks for guests.
Brilliant. Yeah, great idea.
So 1 week me, and then every other week or however many other weeks a guest. And then,
but don't be polite with your guests. If you record with them and it's trash, don't feel obligated to publish it. And I would have like a one sheet which explains, number one, that you want them to have a decent setup if they can. So not yelling into their laptop microphone because it's going to sound awful. So they need to have, it doesn't have to be a great mic,
like a
but
sheet that I would send out and say, this is what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And on that sheet, you want to make a point that they're not guaranteed to be published, even if it's recorded, just to cover yourself. So to sum up this episode then, most branded podcasts tend to be built to be listened to. The ones that work are built to be remembered. They sound like how clear thinking sounds, when someone stops trying to impress. And that's the work that we do at Podknows. We don't make you louder, we don't make you seem busier, we make you reach your ideal listener more clearly and with more intent. So here's a question that I'm going to leave you with in this episode. If someone binged your podcast this month, would next month's sales calls feel different? Because clarity reduces risk, and reduced risk is what actually moves decisions forward. If you want to know whether your podcast is actually doing that, the link to my diagnostic is in the episode description. Or go to podknows.co.uk/diagnostic. If the diagnostic feels like a bit of a next year wishlist item, you're not quite ready for that yet, why not make what you already have perform to the best of its capability? I can help you do that. Book in for one of my comprehensive audits. The link to book is also in the episode description, or you can head straight to podknows.co.uk/audits. And in the next episode, I am totally going to ruin your perception around your download numbers.